So today I'm going to talk about the top 5 things karate needs to change or die. Number 1, only having compliant partner drills. We see this all the time where an opponent or your training partner attacks you. They stand there and frozen for 10 seconds as you do a 20 move combination on them, and then they suddenly just fall over from that flurry of attack. So there's some keywords here. So adding progressive resistance to your drills is key to making them feel more alive. Overly compliant drills create a false sense of practicality, and it'll give you a false sense of confidence in the case that you need to apply these techniques in a real life situation. Another key word here is pressure testing, right? Pressure testing can be seen in a few different ways. You're not really like trying to put on gloves and just try to knock each other's heads off, but there should be a way to test the techniques that you're trying to learn so that you can actually workshop and troubleshoot where your techniques aren't working correctly. This kind of circles to point 2, and that's separating kata and kumite. The majority of karate schools now in the world are thinking of kata and sparring as 2 separate entities, right? So you memorize the forms so that you could test and get a higher ranking belt. You move up the ladder so that you can get your black belt, and then you can retire from the martial art. And then on the other side, some schools will have a sparring night where you come in with gloves and shin guards and mouthpiece and a headgear, and you're there to kind of just do some type of kickboxing, point sparring type of thing, and essentially get your karate sparring in, right? So even in traditional schools, you're seeing this dichotomy happen where people are doing these beautifully orchestrated katas, they're getting ready for tournaments, they're looking very nice and sharp, and they're working their dynamics, they're speeding up in the right places to wow the judges, they're slowing down to add emphasis and drama, and then once they put on the gloves to spar, they're just hopping around and trying to point and spar each other, and there is zero connection between the kata they are doing and the applications they're applying in the kumite. So the biggest thing here is figuring out a way to spar the way you do kata, right? And that might mean that you separate the way you do kata in performance kata for a tournament, performance kata for testing, and then the practical drilling of kata to be able to apply that on an opponent or upon your sparring partner. Again, that circles back to point 1 where you are adding progressive resistance in the dojo so that your sparring partner and everyone else can develop in applying the moves they're learning in kata in an actual sparring situation. And that brings us to point 3. Don't chase belts, just enjoy the process. I tell all the white belts that I ever encounter, I wish I was a white belt again, because every single class you're essentially experiencing a light bulb moment. You get a breakthrough, you get something cool, you get something new that you haven't seen before. As someone who's done martial arts practically my whole life, those breakthroughs are few and far between, and they're appreciated, but it's not as frequent as a white belt. So going back to a little more ranty one thing karate needs to change or die is operating in silos. A lot of organizations stay within their organization. A lot of grandmasters or senseis don't allow their students to train in other styles. But you have to realize that your martial art journey is specific to you. Yes, you can choose to belong to an organization because you like what they represent. However, it is still your journey, and therefore not cross-training is a disservice to yourself. The caveat here is you don't want to start out as a brand new white belt and just start training in 10 different styles and 10 different schools. You're going to have tons of different ideologies and philosophies that are conflicting, and you're going to have all these different instructors kind of pulling you in different directions. However, on the flip side, you don't want to be a 20-year karate black belt and never had to deal with someone trying to take you to the ground. And I think that kind of meshes in with this last point, which is essentially thinking the sensei knows everything, right? One individual is not going to hold all the answers for all types of combat for every single scenario and situation, even though some of them might talk like they do. That kind of mindset of just accepting what the sensei says has gotten karate to the point that it is today, right? If you think about it, if you don't question your authority, you're just going to take things at face value, and you're not going to really internalize and understand the whys of what you're doing. A lot of senseis, they teach things because it was taught to them and it's kind of regurgitated. It's like playing a game of telephone. You are just repeating what's told to you, but it's not going to be exactly how it was told. And then the next generation is just going to repeat what's told to them. And then if you think 3, 4, 5 generations down, you have something that looks completely different than the original intent. Then it becomes a situation of the blind leading the blind. That kind of segues into this conclusion, right? It's a lot of what's happened to karate nowadays is about intent. People train very passively. If you approach your training more actively, then that's going to help improve your understanding and help improve the next generation's understanding as well. And it's a tough ask, right? Because a lot of people, they use martial arts as a mental escape from work life or home life or the stresses of daily life, and therefore you don't want to have another thing on your list to think about. But you kind of owe it to the art itself to have some accountability there, to be a little more active in your training. So I thought I'd change it up this month with a different type of video. I hope you enjoyed that little rant. So these were my top 5 things that karate needs to change or die. Leave a comment below on what you think karate needs to change. Till next time.